Welcome to Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety, where we talk about the real issues out on the road, focus on safe driving, and learn industry best practices from your hosts Kenny Ray, Mike Bohan, and Jim Seibert, in the hopes that by driving the line, we get more drivers home safe and sound. This podcast was made possible by Marsh McLennan Agency.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety. Welcome, first-timers, and welcome back, long-timers. We're glad you're joining us. We are sitting in a Waffle House in Centerton, Arkansas, recording some Waffle House diaries, so to speak. I'm Jim Seibert, and around the table with me today are my good friends and co-hosts Kenny Ray and Mike Bohan. Today's kind of a special event in that we're recording a couple podcasts together. In today's podcast, we're going to be discussing the National Safety Council's initiative, National Safety Month, held every June for the past 28 years. Gents, we've got another great lineup this year that the National Safety Council's put together. 4 topics, one for each week of the month. First week is going to be safety engagement, followed by roadway safety, risk reduction, and then slips, trips, and falls. So just looking at those 4 topics, it seems like the National Safety Council is building off of some of the things that they had in last year. So safety engagement, kind of building off the topic of emergency preparedness from last year. We've got a new edition of roadway safety. Risk reduction, building off of hazard recognition from last year. And then we've got slips, trips, and falls. That's a repeat of one of their comments one of their topics from last year. That being, hey, that's top 5 every year, slip, trips, and falls injuries. So, gents, let's put ourselves in the position of a safety director for a trucking company. How would we go about prioritizing these topics in June?
And Jim, Mike, and I both will answer that question. But before we do, I want to tell y'all how cool it is for us to be in a Waffle House recording the episodes. And it's incumbent upon me. I want to tell y'all a real quick Waffle House story. Y'all know, both of y'all know, and many of our audience members know, but I'm a retired Texas State Trooper. And picture my state, the state of Texas, and a lot of people lose sight of the fact that we're a coastal state. We border the Gulf of Mexico for hundreds of miles. And one of our severe weather events in Texas are hurricanes. We don't get one every year. We get tornadoes every year, but we get them frequently enough that the Texas Gulf Coast is always preparing for hurricanes. And as a state trooper, I got sent over my career many times to the coast after a hurricane came inland and everything was destroyed. And the local sheriff, the local official would reach out to the state police and say, we need help. All of our employees' homes are destroyed. We have no infrastructure. Would you send state troopers to help us? And I've slept on sleeping bags on the floor in jails, on courthouses, everywhere. But I'm going somewhere with this, with us being in a Waffle House. Waffle House has a company policy that one thing they do immediately following a natural disaster, they have emergency teams they send into the local Waffle House, and they get that restaurant opened back up, oftentimes within 24 hours, if they even had to shut down. Now, I want to tell y'all something important about that. We're sitting in a beautiful Waffle House in northwest Arkansas. I have been to towns along the Texas Gulf Coast where everything was destroyed, utter destruction. And you roll into town, there's no electricity, there's no water, and the dadgum Waffle House is open. They've got a generator, they're feeding police officers, they're feeding first responders. It is unreal. So I want to give a shout out to whoever at corporate Waffle House has the idea that if one of our communities gets destroyed, our restaurant's going to be there to serve people. And it is an awesome thing to roll into a town wondering, where am I going to eat? You look up and you say, that's surrealistic. The Waffle House is open. They are. And they're serving waffles to hurricane relief people. It's absolutely unreal. Now, Jim, back to your question. Every year, the National Safety Council, during the month of June, picks 4 topics just as a framework, just as suggestions that, hey, you know, you may want to cover these ideas because they're problems across the country. And as a former safety director for a trucking company, I used that framework every single year. And I would look at the National Safety Council topics, whatever they happen to be, every year, and then I would divide my month, the month of June, into 4 weeks. And so whatever National Safety Council had for week 1, I would adopt that topic, not because I was lazy, but because of this. The National Safety Council also produces phenomenal materials, resources that goes along with the topics. Now, you can belong to National Safety Council as a member and get even more resources as a premium member, but even their free resources, they provide posters, they provide recordings that you can use on social media, they provide toolbox talk topics, they provide media releases that you can put in the local paper. So for a safety director of a trucking company to sit and say, what do I do during National Safety Month? Shame on you. Go to nationalsafetycouncil.org or nsc.org and pull up the resources for National Safety Month, and they will walk you through week by week by week, and the safety director can simply download the material. National Safety Council doesn't care if you brand it your own way. You know, they have no political agenda. They have one function, and that is to keep people from getting hurt. So if our listeners don't remember anything else from this podcast, I want them to remember, go to the National Safety Council, get access to the resources, and help keep your people safe.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, Kenny, that you brought up, that framework that they provide for us on those 4 weeks. Every one of those topics that they have this year falls right smack dab in the middle of what a trucking company needs to be talking to their employees about anyway. It's that safety engagement, roadway safety, risk reduction, slips, trips, falls. That's all stuff we should be talking to our clients about as safety professionals and risk consultants, and that's all that those safety directors at trucking companies, they should be talking about those issues with their drivers anyway. So you'd mentioned the National Safety Council brochures and material that they have available, which is all just excellent material for them to utilize. Don't reinvent the wheel. It's there for you to use.
Absolutely.
That's what it's there for.
Yep.
But I would also recommend to them, if you're partnering with anybody else in the industry, whether it's an insurance carrier, state associations, national associations, they're going to have some materials like this as well. I know, like with slips, trips, falls, roadway safety, there's a lot of material out there. So definitely start with the National Safety Council, but look to your partners. Who are you partnering with? If you're a safety director sitting at a trucking company today, who are you partnering with in this industry to help you with safety? Reach out to them for resources, because there is no sense, and especially in this month where that framework that Kenny talked about is there, that we need to be reinventing the wheel on anything.
Absolutely.
And I know, Kenny, you and I, the trucking clients that we go out and visit, we work with some really large companies and we work with some really small companies. There may be some really large companies out there, they may have developed their own internal materials that they use during this month, and that's perfectly fine. That's fantastic. Utilize that stuff. But if you're a smaller carrier, you don't have those resources, you don't have those materials, definitely check with your partners. National Safety Council, insurance companies, state associations. Look to those folks. There's help out there. Just reach out, ask for help.
And again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And Jim, I'll tell you a funny story about using resources. When I was the safety director, we had 500 drivers, 21 terminals across the U.S. We went into Canada and to Mexico, so truly an international hazmat tanker outfit. And every once in a while, I would run into a driver at one of our terminals, and they'd come up and they'd say, "It's National Safety Month, isn't it?" And I said, "Did your terminal manager tell you that?" "No, but when the posters start going up in the bathroom, I know it's National Safety Month."
Something's going on.
So, and the point about that, what's important about that made them think about National Safety Month. Yeah. Just a visual, a static display, putting a poster on the wall in the bathroom, made them think about National Safety
It's an awareness thing.
Absolutely.
But to double tap on that, there's no excuse when the National Safety Council puts this effort together to provide us every single tool that we can utilize, and it's all there, it's all available. Become a member, you get even more stuff. I think that they do it. That initiative is so well done. Gents, you know I'm an ag guy, right? And I got truck companies in my ag sector. And for me, I'd be a little bit remiss if I didn't highlight that, okay, maybe they're not a member of the National Safety Council. I'd encourage them to be. But grainnetsafety.org follows this, and it specializes in that cooperative. So my smaller cooperatives that maybe have 10, 15 trucks, Grain Net Safety, they follow along and they celebrate or they promote this month as well. And then they provide ag-specific materials for this month. So OSHA, even bring up OSHA here. OSHA Quick Takes over these topics. It's another really good resource. But it's tough to get around that National Safety Month material. It's really there for all the directors to use, and it focuses heavily on those topics. So what's an event? All right, we talked about using the materials, where to get some materials. What have you seen that's really been a great initiative, a great push? Safety stand downs or ups, those events. Have you guys seen this month pushed in any other direction besides posters getting put up on the wall?
Well, let me address that first, then I'll yield to Mike. It always, in our world, the trucking world, it's always a function of the type of motor carrier. Because if you're dealing with an over-the-road outfit, their drivers are scattered all over the country. If you're dealing with somebody who runs local, their drivers normally come to the yard every morning at a common time, almost like a manufacturing plant, and there's a greater chance of them being able to hold a formal toolbox talk, safety stand down, whatever you want to call it. And again, I know we have a lot of safety directors that follow the podcast. Guys and gals that are out there, safety directors, think about if your drivers come to the yard every day, seize that opportunity to use some of this material and have a separate talk each week of the month of June covering those topics. Now, the guys that have over-the-road drivers got a little bit more creative because they go weeks, maybe months at a time, don't even see their guys. The dispatchers are talking to them. So at that point, the safety director needs to pair up or collaborate with the dispatch staff and say, look, I've got some resources. What's the best way for us to get them out to the driver fleet? And let the dispatch staff help with that. And one other thing, and I've never, ever been embarrassed about this, and we've talked about it in the past, so people that follow the podcast already know that I'm the old guy on the team, okay? Both of you men are younger than me, and you're both a whole lot smarter than I am. I am not a technology guy, but the cool thing about these National Safety Council materials and resources, they have stayed current with technology. They've got stuff you can use on social media. They have audio visual stuff, so people that are really creative, particularly if they have their own internal platform within the company, they've got a company web or a company site or a company Facebook page. Man, these safety directors, there's stuff, again, guys and gals listening, there's stuff already made that you can use that is high quality, it's spot on, they'll let you brand it. It's a wonderful tool. So again, don't miss the boat on that, please.
Yeah, and tailor it to their company. And Kenny, a couple things you said there that stood out to me. One is lots of different companies out there. Not everybody's operational structure is the same. You might have local drivers, you might have over-the-road drivers. So I see a lot of over-the-road companies that are heavily reliant on the messages they send out, social media, things like that. That would be very similar to a poster, except the poster's on their social media page, and they get a lot of interaction there. So that's something that, again, this doesn't have to be a 2-hour meeting you have with these folks. This is just bringing it to the forefront and making the drivers that are out there think about what's going on during this month, whatever the topic is. If we're talking about slips, trips, falls that week, then let's bring that to the forefront. Have a conversation with them, whether that's a social media post or it's the posters that start showing up at the terminals. And we're getting that in front of the drivers, and that's one of the most important things. If it's a local group, and you before the guys take off for the day, you got them for 10 or 15 minutes before they take out. That's a perfect amount of time just to have a quick conversation about, hey, we're going to talk about roadway safety this week, and we just want you guys to be aware. Let's watch our speed. Let's watch our following distance. Let's, you name it. It's a perfect opportunity. But again, the resources are there. Whether you're running 500 trucks or whether you're running 5 trucks, the resources are there. Now, the bigger companies, they may tailor it to their own, like Kenny, like you said, they may have their own internal platform and maybe tweaking it to fit their company, but you don't have to do that. You just grab those resources just like they are and utilize them. But the key is getting that information in front of the drivers and bringing awareness about what safety topic it is that week of that month. The thing that to me is important, you mentioned about getting the dispatchers involved and talking with the drivers, because they're the ones that are talking to the drivers more than anybody.
Yeah.
So get the operations folks involved in that. They're a mouthpiece for safety, because we all know that safety in a company is not just one person or a department. Safety's got to run through the entire company. Amen. So get those folks involved. And my second point to that is, if you're an owner of a trucking company, you're in the executive management of the trucking company, and you're listening to this, please be engaged in this, and be a promoter of not just this month and these 4 topics, but be a promoter of safety in your company, because this starts at the top. And if you don't have the buy-in at the top, if you don't have that type of leadership in your company, it's going to be hard for that to get all the way down through to the end point, which is your drivers, is the ones that are up and down the road, the ones that are really making a difference out there on the road. So please, owners, executive management, be engaged, be involved, support your safety director, and I think you'll see that makes a huge difference in the outcome of a month like this, where we've got 4 topics that we want to talk about.
No doubt. And Jim, I'm going to punt back to you, but I want to build on something you said earlier. You made a very profound point, and that is that every one of these topics are applicable to the trucking industry and how they can be applied. And you asked Mike and I, guys, how can y'all apply these to the trucking industry? I've run into safety directors before that have erroneously said, well, those are OSHA topics. And I want that our listeners to hear again, whenever you think, because National Safety Council, the National Safety Month, is for our entire nation. And so National Safety Council develops materials that really are applicable across a variety of industries. But I want to make sure our listeners know every one of these topics. Mike mentioned it, Jim mentioned it, and I'm stressing it. Every one of these topics is applicable to the trucking industry. Every one of them. Let's talk about slips, trips, and falls just a second. You know, normally people think, well, that's OSHA coming in and seeing is there oil on the floor, or do we have a trip hazard on the floor? But Mike and I could sit here for days and tell you stories of truck drivers who have got out of the cab of a tractor. They've been driving for 5 or 6 hours. They're stiff. They have not stood up and stretched their legs in 5 or 6 hours. They get out of that cab. They start walking across a yard that may be concrete, may be asphalt, may be caliche rock, may be mud. And the next thing you know, they fall and they've got a serious injury. And that is a truck driver having a slip, trip, or fall. So for the safety directors out there, do not have a closed mind that these are OSHA-only related topics. Every single one of them, have tremendous applications to the trucking industry, bar none.
Yeah, great point there. Mike, I really liked what you said. This is a leadership-driven event that needs to cascade, and I love bringing in the dispatcher, highlighting they're the primary communicators. So to our listeners, if you need additional information, please reach out to your trusted risk consultant. If you have questions about something we've covered or have ideas for future podcast ideas, send them to podcast@marshmma.com. That's MARSHMMA.com. In the next episode of Driving the Line, we're going to continue our Waffle House Diaries and discuss our theory of how a good safety policy makes the world go round. Until then, for my co-hosts Mike and Kenny, I'm Jim Seibert. Stay safe and thank you for joining us on Driving the Line, the podcast that is always in the pursuit of safety.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and thank you for listening. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other app you're using. You can also follow Marsh McLennan Agency on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, thanks again for listening. Drive safely, everyone.